Now we're moving to our next Brazil representative. Let me introduce you Dr. Fernando Cardoso. He is the head of research center of Embrapa. Embrapa is a Brazilian agency for innovations in agriculture. They bring innovations to the farmers. And Fernando is going to show us how genomic selection in livestock in Brazil looks like from the farmer's perspective. Fernando, are you here with me?
Yes, thank you, Alona. Thank you very much for this opportunity. It's very kind of you to invite us, and we are very honored to be here. I'll share some slides here. Just give me a second. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Do you see my full presentation now?
Yes, I see a full presentation. Let me check if the audience sees it. Yes, I think the audience sees it. Okay, Bruno, you can start. I give you the mic.
Okay, very good. I'll speak mostly, I think, about beef cattle. And the reason for that is that beef cattle is the second largest agricultural enterprise, and second to soybeans. And then we have poultry, dairy is around here, and then we have swine. So beef cattle is the, in terms of protein, is animal protein is the most important industry in Brazil. Rodrigo mentioned a little bit about that. Brazil is the second largest producer in the world, second to the United States, and then the largest exporter in the world. And it's about 10% of the GDP. So that gives you an idea of the importance of the agricultural sector in Brazil. And as we are mostly a tropical country, it's mainly based on pasture and indocene breeds. Nevertheless, the use of taurine breeds is it's very important, and it's mostly used in crossbreeding with the indocene cows to improve early, mature, and meat quality of these populations in the whole region of Brazil. So, for example, Angus in 2020 sold 7 million straws of semen just in 1 year. Now, the use of high percentage of taurine blood in most of the country is limited through ticks. Rodrigo mentioned a little bit about that, and other external parasites, and also the heat tolerance. So we have currently in place genomic selection for all beef, important beef breeds, several breeding programs we have in the country. And for example, just for Nelore, we have already more than 300,000 genotypes, and Angus, Brangus, Braford, all important relevant breeds have already genomic selection in place in the country. The model that the producers access the technology in most cases are through the breed association. So we have organized breed associations for each breed or set of breeds. And for example, we have ABCZ, which is the Brazilian Zebu Breeders Association. And generally they have the historical data, the phenotypes, the reference population, that the animals with phenotypes and genotypes. Alona mentioned a little bit about the model of genomic selection in the beginning of this section. And then the breed association also have the genotypes. And then there are companies like Newgene, Zoetis, that they do the genotype. So the producers send the DNA to the genotyping companies, they do the genotyping, and then they send information to the breed associations. And then they often have a provider, a genomic evaluation provider. For example, Embrapa is a genomic evaluation provider. And we generally use the single-step model, which combines pedigree, phenotypes, and markers in a single step evaluation to provide the GBVs for selections. And the interesting feature of this model is that selected animals get phenotypes, they are fed back to the reference population that is managed by the breed association, and that improves accuracy, constantly improve accuracy of genomic predictions. Here, just an example that we did with Angus, but it's done for all breeds, is that we get higher accuracies. These are BIF accuracies, higher accuracies using genomic selection than traditional selection. So we can move forward faster with the selection of all breeds here in Brazil, and as it happens all over the world. We focus on new and important economically relevant traits that are not currently in our breeding programs. For example, the tick resistance. So ticks are the most damaging parasite all over the world. 80% of the cattle is affected by ticks, and estimated loss go up to $30 billion per year, 3 billion just in Brazil. We have demonstrated through validation that the difference of using high resistance to low resistance sires, this is with Bradford cattle. We use them in F1 crosses, cows that were Nelore crossed to Angus or Senapal, and we observed a reduction of 1/3 in the tick load of their cats. So using high resistance bulls would reduce in 1/3 the tick loads of the offspring. We are also looking at feed efficiency and greenhouse emissions. This is very keen. We have a methane reduction effort in place in Brazil, and we do that in feedlot central station tests. We have already in the market bulls with a genomic evaluation for beef breeds since 2017, and so this is available for producers through auctions all over the country. We also have sire summaries, that is another source where breeders can access the information. Rodrigo mentioned about our first sire summary in 2012, but then we have for dairy, for zebu, and also last year for Angus in Brazil. So all breeds, producers can access the technology through sire summaries for AI bulls or through actions to pasture cleanup bulls. We also been involved for the traits that are very difficult and costly to measure, like, for example, tick resistance, but that's also valid for methane emission, feed efficiency, other disease traits. We've been involved in combining data from different countries. I think this is very important. Here is an example that work that we did with Australia and South Africa, combining 7 different breeds and producing a multi-trait, multi-country genomic selection for tick resistance. So if we look at the beef sector, and this is valid across the world, genomic selection will not do a big difference for traits that we can measure in animals before selection, like body weights, body gains, body measurements. It will be useful for traits that are more costly, like carcass traits by ultrasound, or sex-limited traits like heifer pregnancy, early puberty. But really the big difference that the producers can get value from genomic selection in the beef industry is from new traits that are very important economically, but are not currently in the breeding programs or in the breeding objectives, because they are difficult to improve by traditional methods like feed efficiency, disease resistance, longevity, how often a cow will deliver a calf and how heavy it will be, and also product quality. So those are the most important traits for that will benefit from genomic selection. And to finish my quick presentation here, it's very important for countries that are, in the process of implementing and developing strong reference populations, is to collect large and relevant data sets. And the way we are doing here in Brazil is when it goes to disease, adaptation, and reproduction, developing farm protocols and training people, technicians, to do the collection on farm. And for traits like feed efficiency, greenhouse emissions, and meat quality, doing central station tests. So that's the way to generate the phenotypes. We've been doing funding from to start the process using research projects, local international funding agency, and then partnership with private companies like Illumina or others that they can give support in the beginning to develop the reference populations. And it's very important to have viable business models that reduce the cost for the producers once we have the product in the market. And that is done by joint ordering genotypes through combining several breeders in the breed associations, and also combining data from several countries to have larger reference populations. When you combine different populations, you need to have high density genotypes. That's important to use the technique called imputation of genotypes. And well, what are the main advantages that producers are gaining? Of course, effective selection for traits related to tropical adaptation and production, traits that are sometimes already in the breeding program, but that they can move faster, but particularly development of new distinguished lineages of cattle. We've been working here to develop taurine breeds adapted to the tropical production. I think that can be a big distinguishment for the Brazilian beef sector. So we are, showing that to the producers so that they can seek that path and have a competition advantage in that way. That was my short presentation about the producer's view. As Alona mentioned at the beginning, I work for the Brazilian Agricultural Research Corporation. We have this international website. You can see the publications there. And I thank you very much. We are happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Fernando. That just was interesting. We have a few questions. First one is how government is involved in the process of introducing genomic selection to the market. Does it finance this technology implementations from the government side?
Yeah, so I think there are two main ways. One is through funding research agencies. So research projects that are used at the beginning to develop the reference population, so that it's a public investment, but also government is giving support to subsidize genotypes at the beginning of the establishment of the breeding program. So sometimes breed association with the Ministry of Agriculture, they will partially fund the genotyping so that the producers will access the technology at a lower cost at the beginning, until they are comfortable and they see the results, and then they can pay in full for the cost of the technology.
Do you have such financing programs now, or are they already over?
No, I mean, the last year, for example, the Brazilian Zebu Association got a large grant to fund the program, and they are seeking to get to at least 500,000 genotypes this year. I was impressed by the Indian size of the funding, the government funding.
Yeah,
it's not that big. It's not that big, certainly here in Brazil.
Okay, thank you, Fernando. And other questions I would like to ask of you is how do you collect phenotypes? As far as I know, a lot of your cattle is grassing, and how it is possible to make farmers collect correct genotypes and send them to the associations?
Well, yeah, we have the large farms, but all of them, they have management centers, so the cattle is fetch and then they collect the data, and we identify particular farms that are more suitable to have high technology, and then those are the ones providing the specialized data. And when I say that, is like, for example, with the tick resistance, there are some farms that they also have central stations within the farm to do the feed efficiency. Of course, for example, methane emissions are in research institutions, but several farms have the capability to collect specialized phenotypes. And then, I mean, you do the data collection to develop the reference population, and then other farms that are not able to collect the data, they can benefit from genomic selection just using the genotyping. That's the way to do it.
Great, thank you very much for your speech and for the answers. That was really interesting.